questions that the committee might have. So at this time, I would entertain any motions. Representative Cars.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a motion that we dismiss the complaint.
There's been a motion. Second. Representative Ballard. Do we have discussion?
Chairwoman.
Representative Cars.
Thank you. I'd like to explain my motion. I prepared some comments. I reviewed the state law, federal law, precedent, prayed about it, and I want to make sure I say everything that I meant to say, so I'm going to read from some prepared statement. The First Amendment states in relevant part that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Section 11 of the Kansas Constitution Bill of Rights states, in part, all persons may freely speak, write, or publish their sentiments on all subjects, being responsible for the abuse of such rights. In Article 2 and Section 22 of the Kansas Constitution provides for legislative immunity. It states in relevant part, for any speech, written document, or debate in either house, the members shall not be questioned elsewhere. However, according to the Kansas Supreme Court under Article 2, Section 2 of the Kansas Constitution, the House is the sole judge of the qualifications of its members, and no other branch may interfere. And in a case 1878, Attorney General versus Tomlinson, by the Constitution, each House is made a judge of the qualifications of its own members. Reading these constitutional provisions in harmony, it is clear that no member of this House may be held to account for what such member says or writes during debate or on legislation by the other branches, meaning any such member cannot be prosecuted or sued for what they say here, and that is as it should be. However, the House itself has the right to police and judge its own members without interference from the other branches or the Senate under standards it alone may decide. The question then is, what standards should we apply to Representative Winn's statements? My view is that we should support freedom of speech no matter how irresponsible, slanderous, or hurtful that speech may be. That is what the People's House is all about, freedom of speech. Therefore, I do not support any action to expel or to discipline Representative Winn's because of her comments. Having said that, I also note that our Constitution says that all Kansans are responsible for any abuse of their free speech rights. And I completely understand the outrage from the complainants. Representative Winn's comments, by any fair measure, are slanderous. They amount to an unfair and irresponsible attack.
I'm going to remind this audience, I will remove you. Please keep silent.
They amount to an unfair and irresponsible attack on our fellow members, and they are hurtful, and they are simply wrong. All too often we see challenges to people's motives instead of on the merits of individual legislation. If we would confine ourselves to the substance of bills, perhaps this place would operate better and with more respect. To be an effective legislator, one must have good relationships with other members to get things done. In my view, Representative Winn has isolated herself with her comments, and she should consider that reality carefully. I respectfully suggest that she apologize. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Have any other comments from Representative Little?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of the motion to dismiss for a different reason. I just wanted to point out for the record and also for the people here, that this bill does spark emotion for those who are concerned with racial matters or matters of discrimination in our country. I also want to point out that when the bill came up last term, one of the members of the body expressed a disagreement with supporting the bill, and that member received death threats. And if you go on to the Huffington Post article where it highlights this member's comments in her story, which to me is a rather courageous story, you will read postings that are incredibly offensive and incredibly racist because she spoke in opposition to this bill. I believe that if we want to be productive and move this conversation forward, we have to acknowledge that this isn't a vacuum. That Representative Winn, when I read the transcript, I don't think she was saying if you support this bill, you're a racist. I believe she was saying that there are racist people who support this bill. And when she was challenged, and when she was asked, are you calling everyone who supports this bill a racist? She said no, if the shoe fits. And I believe she was turning the question back on them like a good professor would and say, are you supporting this bill for racial motivations or for discriminatory motivations, or are you supporting this bill for other factors? And with that, I agree with the motion. I will be supporting the motion, but I did want to offer a different point of view. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to address the word supporters. Normally when we refer as a legislator to supporters, we're talking about our constituents, people in our communities, people around the state. Usually we don't use the word supporters when we are on the committee ourselves, because we have the opportunity to vote, we have the opportunity to discuss further where our supporters do not. So in a global sense, I see Representative Winn referring to supporters. It could be all those other people that are out there. Now, how it's taken by somebody, that's on you. You take it that way. It doesn't necessarily mean it was aimed at you. You can take it that way. And because of that, I agree with the motion to dismiss, but I also would say, please look at supporters as a global word and not just a committee. And I would have to come back again to the First Amendment right. First Amendment protects us in so many ways. And as I explained, in a setting where we had a Constitution Day program, and they were talking about First Amendment rights. And for those of you who remember the case, Snyder versus Phelps, it was interesting because I learned a lot about First Amendment and what both attorneys who were explaining First Amendment right, and they're experts in this field, said, I don't care whether you agree or disagree, you don't like what's said, you take it personally, or you think it was aimed at you. Maybe it was aimed at you, but if they didn't call your name, then maybe it wasn't just you per se. But the point was the First Amendment right works for you and it works against you. And because it may be appalling, something that you just have a hard time dealing with and everything else, it is still First Amendment right and you're going to be protected. And for that reason, I agree that we should dismiss, motion to dismiss. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further comments? Representative?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also rise in support of the motion to dismiss. Basically echoing the comments that Representative Ballard made, I do think that when Representative Winn was talking about this bill, she was talking about institutional racism. I think that was pretty clear, I thought, from her comments. Clearly some people took it the wrong way, but I don't think that's what she intended at all. So I support this motion.
Representative Schwartz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This has been my 19th year in the legislature, and through those years we've learned to respect each other as our colleagues. And this experience has not been a good experience for me necessarily, but it's been a learning experience, and I hope that for everyone else it has been a learning experience, because we need to, I know that whether either side of the aisle we talk about, I have friends on both sides of the aisle and I want to treat them with respect, and I think that's what's important. But as I think about, as we deliberated, I support the motion to dismiss this and move on, and hopefully we've learned from this exercise, and that every one of us respect each other as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. With all committee members having had an opportunity to make a comment, I will now call this motion for a vote. So all those in favor of the motion to dismiss, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. That concludes the substantive portion of this Select Investigating Committee. I will be issuing a report reflecting the decision of the committee. It will be, my intent is to do it in the next 30 days. Before we adjourn, I do want to say a special thank you to the staff, the revisor's office in particular. We've put a lot of hard work into this to make sure that we were doing this correctly. You know, there's not a lot of precedent for the Select Investigating Committees, and wanting to make sure that all proceedings are fair and equitable was a lot of work, and given the extremely long session that we just finished, it was yeoman's work for that. I want to thank my committee members. I can't imagine serving on a difficult committee like this without the people who are on either side of me, both sides of the aisle. Very professional, upstanding. The decorum and the debate and the discussion have been above reproach, and I appreciate all of you for working with me on this. I want to thank the conferees for being utmost professional, using decorum and staying within the guidelines that I requested. So with that, we are adjourned.
How about the people who came?